The storm hit just after midnight. I was already awake, scrolling through my phone in bed, when the thunder cracked so loud it rattled the glass on my nightstand. A second later, the house went black. No Wi-Fi, no service. No light but the weak glow of my phone battery. And then I heard its low footsteps outside. Sloshing in the rain, I live alone, far enough from the next house that a scream would get lost in the trees. I tried calling 911 anyway, but the call wouldn't connect. Just a dead signal icon mocking me. When the lightning flashed, I caught a glimpse of something in the yard. A man, standing perfectly still at the tree line, his outline sharp against the white blaze of the storm. When the dark fell again, he was gone. I forced myself into motion, grabbed the old toolbox from the laundry room and started hammering boards across the windows. Every thud of the hammer echoed too loudly, like it was announcing where I was. Somewhere between strikes, I realized the sound of rain on the roof had changed. There was weight up there, something moving above me, careful, deliberate. I bolted the last window and turned toward the living room and froze. The front door stood wide open. The boards, the locks, the effort hit hadn't mattered. He was already inside. I backed down the hallway, gripping the hammer until my knuckles hurt. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, even with no signal. When I pulled it out, the screen was lit with a text. From an unknown number, "Stop running." The house creaked in places it shouldn't. Footsteps too heavy to be mine. A scrape along the wall, like something sharp, dragged slowly across it. I ducked into the bathroom and shut the door, pressing myself into the corner. My breath came too loud, too fast. Then the bathroom light flicked on. Not from me. It hummed bright for a second, then died again, plunging me into dark. But, in that instant of light, I saw it. A figure in the mirror behind me, smiling. I bolted, crashed into the hall, ran for the kitchen. Every shadow looked alive. And then the refrigerator door swung open on its own. Inside, wedged between the milk and condiments, sat a phone that wasn't mine. Its screen lit up with a message. "Found you." And behind me, the floor groaned under a second set of footsteps. I don't remember falling. Just the pain of something striking the back of my skull, and then dark. When I came to, I was lying on the floor, the storm still raging outside. My wrists were bound tight with duct tape. The boards I had nailed onto the windows were pried off neatly, stacked in a careful pile like firewood. The intruder knelt beside me. A man in dripping clothes, his face pale and indistinct in the gloom. He whispered like he was telling me a secret. "You called me when the lights went out." I tried to scream, but the tape over my mouth silenced it. He slipped the strange phone into my bound hands and tapped the screen. A recording began to play. It was my voice, calling for help. But I hadn't made the recording. The voice on the phone kept repeating one phrase, over and over, distorted by static, until it was barely words anymore. "Let him in." And then the man leaned close, his breath warm against my ear, and whispered, "Signals back." I don't remember what happened after that. Only that when the neighbors finally came looking days later, my house was empty. The storm had passed, but the boards were still stacked neatly by the wall, and my phone, drained dead, sat on the nightstand, with a single unsent text typed. Into the screen, "He's inside."
I never liked babysitting. It wasn't the kids, I actually loved kids. It was the houses. Empty suburban houses at night always carried this weird, hollow silence, like they were waiting for something. The Martins' place was no different. 2 stories, sprawling, too many rooms, too many doors that could be cracked open in the dark. I kept every light on, even in the rooms I wasn't using, just to pretend I wasn't alone. The storm outside helped. White noise, I told myself. covering up the silence. But the silence never really went away. It was around 9:30 when the house phone rang. Nobody uses landlines anymore, so the sound startled me. I hesitated, but then picked it up. Hello? Nothing. Just faint static. I almost hung up when a voice finally rasped through. Low and uneven, like someone speaking into a fan. Check the children. The line went dead. My skin crawled. The Martins had 2 kids, Ma 6 and Tyler 9. They'd been asleep for hours upstairs. I told myself it was a prank. Probably one of their weird neighbors. Still, I crept up the stairs, each one groaning louder than the last, and peeked into the kids' rooms. Both were sound asleep, breathing soft, faces slack with the innocence of dreams. I pulled the covers back up around their shoulders, careful not to wake them. When I turned back toward the hall, the lights flickered once, and that's when the phone rang again. This time, I didn't want to answer. But I did. Hello, the same voice, a little clearer now. Check the children. My throat went dry. Who is this? Silence. Then a click. I stayed in the hallway outside the kids' rooms, staring at the phone in my hand, when I noticed something strange. Tyler's door was cracked open wider than before. I was sure I had left it only an inch open. But now it gaped enough that I could see the foot of his bed, and the covers I had just tucked back in place were pulled down. I crept back inside, heart pounding, and pulled them up again, steadying him. Still asleep, but something about the way he lay there, his head facing the opposite direction than before, froze me. The phone rang again. I picked up on the first ring, whispering, "Stop it." The voice, deeper now, almost amused. "I like watching you check." I slammed the phone down, chest tight. The storm rattled the windows, a violent gust sweeping against the glass. Somewhere below, I heard the distinct sound of a door shutting. I grabbed the kids, shook them awake, whispering harshly, "Quiet. It's okay, we're going to hide." I ushered them into the closet in Emma's room, sliding the door almost closed. They were groggy and confused, but when they saw my face, they didn't argue. We sat in the dark, the faint sound of thunder rumbling outside, and then, faintly, the creak of someone climbing the stairs, one step at a time. Slow, deliberate. The footsteps stopped right outside Emma's room. I pressed my hand over her mouth gently as she whimpered, my other arm around Tyler. For a long, unbearable moment, nothing. And then breathing. Right outside the closet. Deep, heavy. I didn't move, didn't breathe. And then the closet door slid open an inch. Lightning flashed outside the window, lighting the room for a fraction of a second. A face, smiling, and then darkness again. The house phone shrieked. The sound startled whoever was there because the door shut again, footsteps retreating. I scrambled out, snatching the cordless phone off the hallway table. My hand shook so badly I almost dropped it. When I pressed it to my ear, the voice was waiting, calm, patient. "You moved them." Click. The kids were crying now, quietly, trying to be brave but failing. "I want my mom," Emma whispered. "I know," I told her, voice shaking. "I know, sweetheart. We'll be okay." But even as I said it, the lights flickered again. And this time, when they came back on, every door in the hallway was wide open. Even the attic hatch. I dragged the kids downstairs, thinking we'd make a run for it. But the front door was chained shut from the inside, a thick iron latch I'd never seen before. The phone rang again. I picked it up with trembling fingers. The voice whispered closer than ever, almost behind me. "You forgot one." My stomach dropped. I spun around counting my and then I remembered the Martins had mentioned a baby. Their third child. A crib in the guest room upstairs. The one I hadn't checked. The kids screamed as I bolted up the stairs, my legs burning, the house groaning all around me. The guest room door was already open. Inside, the crib sat in the middle of the room, empty. The phone in my hand buzzed one final time. A text this time. "No caller ID. Check yourself." And in the reflection of the window, illuminated by a lightning flash, I saw it. A tall, grinning figure standing behind me, one hand reaching for my shoulder. I don't remember what happened after that. When the Martins came home the next morning, The kids were sitting quietly in the living room. But I was gone. The only thing left behind was the cordless phone, still in the middle of the carpet, its screen glowing with 2 words, no signal.
I don't keep mirrors in my house. People always think it's strange, but I can't stand them. It's not vanity. It's not superstition. It's because of what happened the night the mirror didn't move when I did. It was late till almost 2 a.m. and I was brushing my teeth before bed. The bathroom mirror was streaked with steam from the shower, but I could still see myself. Same tired eyes, same messy hair. Then I noticed something small. When I leaned down to spit, my reflection leaned slower. A fraction of a second behind, I froze, toothbrush still in my mouth. Maybe I was tired. Maybe it was the steam. I told myself I was imagining things. But when I raised my hand to wipe the glass, my reflection didn't move. Not right away. It caught up a second later, jerky and unnatural. I should have smashed the mirror that night. I should have listened to my gut, but I didn't. Instead, I turned out the light and left. Tried to sleep, only I couldn't shake the feeling that something was awake in there watching. At 3:14 a.m., I woke to the sound of glass creaking. Like the house was settling but sharper. I checked the bathroom. The mirror was clean, perfectly spotless, but I hadn't wiped it. The next night I tested it. I stood in front of the mirror for nearly an hour, making small movements, raising my eyebrows, tilting my head. Sometimes the reflection was right on time. Other times it lagged, like a bad video call. Once it smiled before I did. A wide, unnatural grin spreading across my tired face while I was still staring slack-jawed. I stumbled back, heart pounding, but the grin didn't fade. It just watched me. I covered the mirror with a sheet. That should have been the end of it. But the next morning, I caught my reflection in the toaster. It blinked when I didn't. By that night, the glass of my phone screen froze on an image of my face, even after I'd lowered it. The reflections were everywhere now, multiplying. I stopped looking. At least I tried to. But it's impossible to avoid reflective surfaces completely. Windows, glass, puddles after the rain. And every time, my reflection wasn't quite right. Sometimes it stood a little closer. Sometimes its head was tilted at an angle mine wasn't. Sometimes its lips moved like it was whispering words I couldn't hear. And sometimes it wasn't alone. I saw shapes behind it, faces leaning out of the darkness, things I couldn't see in my own world but existed in theirs. I finally decided I'd smash the bathroom mirror, get rid of the source. I grabbed the hammer and ripped the sheet down. What stared back wasn't me. It was something wearing me. The eyes were too wide, too glossy. The grin was cracked, stretching too far. And when I lifted the hammer, my reflection didn't copy me at all. Instead, it raised its empty hand and knocked 3 slow taps from the other side of the glass, like it wanted out. That night, I covered every reflective surface I could find. Aluminum foil, paint sheets. But glass has a way of finding you. I woke in the middle of the night to the sound of shattering. The bathroom mirror lay in pieces across the floor, and standing among the shards, lit faintly by the moonlight through the window, was me. Or rather, what had been waiting behind me all along. I don't know how long we stared at each other, but when I finally screamed, the sound didn't come from my throat, it came from its. And as it stepped forward, crunching glass under bare feet, I realized something awful. It wasn't just stepping out. I was being pulled in, dragged into a dark place where countless reflections stood waiting, each one twisted, each one smiling, all of them hungry. The last thing I saw of my world was the bathroom light flicking on by itself, and the face in the mirror, my face, looking perfectly normal again, like nothing had ever been wrong. They say if you look closely into glass, you'll always see yourself. But sometimes, what's looking back isn't you at all.
Everyone has that one room in the house they don't use. Mine was the guest bedroom at the end of the hall. When I bought the place, the realtor told me the previous owner had it sealed shut years before. Though no one seemed to know why. The door had an old brass lock built into the handle, stiff and rusted, and though I had a full ring of keys, none of them worked on it. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't need a guest room. But I could never shake the feeling that something on the other side didn't want me there. The first time I heard it, I was unpacking boxes in the living room. A faint scratching sound, like nails against wood, coming from upstairs. I froze, holding my breath. After a minute it stopped, so I laughed it off. Old house noises. Mice in the walls. Anything but what it really sounded like. Someone locked in that room, dragging their nails down the inside of the door. That night, I dreamt of the sound again. Only in the dream, it wasn't scratching. It was knocking. 2 weeks later, I found a key taped to the underside of a drawer in the master bedroom. Old, heavy, and tarnished. It looked like it belonged to a church or a prison, not a suburban house. I told myself I wouldn't use it. That room was sealed for a reason. But once you know a door can be opened, it gnaws at you. It was raining the night I gave in. I stood in front of the guest bedroom door, with the heavy key in my hand. Listening. Nothing. The house was silent. The key slid into the lock easier than I expected. When I turned it, the sound was so loud it echoed through the hall. Click. The door creaked open an inch. The smell hit me first, musty, like wet earth. I pushed the door wider and peered in. Empty. Just a small, bare room with wallpaper peeling at the seams and a single window nailed shut. The floorboards were warped, water-stained. Nothing sinister. Nothing strange. Except the feeling, that crushing, suffocating heaviness that pressed against me as soon as I stepped across the threshold. Like the air was thicker here. Like the room was holding its breath. I locked the door again when I left, but the feeling lingered. I found myself checking the hallway constantly, half expecting to see the door standing open on its own. 3 nights later, I woke to the sound of it creaking. I rushed into the hall, barefoot, heart pounding. The door was open 2 inches, and the key was back under the drawer where I'd first found it. I started hearing it more often. Not scratching, any more footsteps. Slow pacing. Sometimes a low whisper I couldn't make out. One night, I pressed my ear to the door and listened. There was someone breathing on the other side. Not shallow. Not panicked. Calm. Patient. Listening to me, too. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to see. I unlocked the door again, flashlight in hand. The room looked the same as before, bare, empty. But when I shone the light on the far wall, I saw something I hadn't noticed the first time. A second door. Small, narrow, almost hidden behind the peeling wallpaper. It wasn't on the floor plan. I should have turned back. But instead, I pulled at the warped wood until it groaned open. Behind it was a staircase leading down into darkness. And the smell, rotting earth, wet stone, something animal. My flashlight flickered, and in that half-second before it came back, I swear I saw movement. A figure at the bottom of the stairs, waiting. I slammed the door and ran, locking the guest room so fast, the old key nearly snapped in my hand. That should have been the end. But the scratching came back that night only now. It wasn't from inside the guest room. It was from the other side of my bedroom door. Slow, patient, nails dragging across the wood. I don't go near the guest room anymore. I keep the key locked in a box, but I hear it still pacing, scratching, knocking. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I wake to find the key sitting on my nightstand. And sometimes, the door at the end of the hall is open again. They say every house has secrets. But some rooms aren't meant to be opened. Because once you unlock them, something might decide to step through.
You can learn a lot about a house by listening to it. The groans of old wood, the sigh of air moving through vents, the creak of pipes in the night. That's what I told myself the first time I heard the whispers. But I know better now. There's something in the walls, and it's been watching me. It started subtle, a faint rustling in the drywall, like a mouse scurrying between studs. I knocked on the plaster, half expecting silence. Instead, Something knocked back 3 times. I wanted to believe it was animals, a raccoon, rats, anything but what it really sounded like, a hand pressing against the inside of the wall. So I set traps, put out poison, even paid for an exterminator to tear open a vent. He didn't find droppings. He didn't find nests.com, but he found something else. Deep scratches, gouged into the wood, as if something had been clawing to get out. A week later, I noticed a small hole in the wall near the baseboard of the hallway. I crouched down, thinking it was damage from the exterminator. But when I leaned close, I froze. Because behind the jagged hole, in the darkness, there was an eye, staring back at me.com, wide, unblinking, human. I stumbled back, heart hammering, but when I looked again, the hole was empty. The noises grew louder, not just scratching now, breathing. A low, labored rasp, sometimes a whisper, just at the edge of hearing. My name, over and over. I started covering the holes as I found them, patching them with plaster, painting over them. But every morning, new ones appeared, higher up, closer to where my face would be when I slept. One night I woke to the sound of nails dragging against the wall above my bed. I turned on the lamp. The wallpaper was bulging, faintly moving as if something inside was pressing against it. And when I reached out with a shaking hand, I felt warmth, a palm, pressing back. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a crowbar from the garage and started tearing at the drywall. If something was in there, I'd drag it out. But when the plaster fell away, the space between the studs was empty. No animals, no intruder, nothing. Just black gouges carved into the wood, symbols I didn't recognize. And the smell, rotting meat, stale breath, mold, the stench of something that shouldn't be living. That night, I boarded up the room, slept in the living room instead. But the whispers followed me, through vents, through cracks, through outlets. No matter where I went in the house, there were always eyes on the walls, watching, waiting, learning how to move closer. I woke this morning to find a new hole in the wall of the living room, larger than the others, too large to ignore. And when I leaned close, against every instinct screaming at me not to, I didn't see an eye this time. I saw a mouth, stretched wide, grinning, full of teeth too sharp and too many. It whispered my name one last time, and then it laughed. The walls are full of them now, dozens, hundreds, voices whispering, claws scraping, teeth gnashing. The house isn't mine anymore. It's theirs. I don't know how long I can last, but I know one thing. The watchers aren't trapped inside the walls. I am.